Today, President Biden signed an executive order directing the Justice Department to look into declassifying some documents related to the 9/11 attacks. He did so under pressure from families of victims who are demanding to know if Saudi Arabia helped the 9/11 hijackers. We get more now from CBS's Catherine Herridge, including an exclusive interview with two former investigators.
Brad Eagleson was 15 years old when his father, Bruce, was killed in the World Trade Center South Tower.
And that's my dad.
Eagleson is now leading a group of 9/11 families battling their own government to release still secret FBI files from the case.
It's a 10-year-long investigation that specifically investigated the role that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia played in supporting the hijackers.
The case, codenamed Operation Encore, centered on the two hijackers that lived in San Diego and who assisted them.
Is that the first mosque they went to in San Diego?
This is it right here.
Danny Gonzalez was an FBI agent who worked on Operation Encore. He showed us the neighborhood the hijackers lived in. This is his first television interview about the case.
19 hijackers cannot commit 3,000 mass murders by themselves.
Based on what you found, do you believe there was a domestic support network for the hijackers?
Obviously.
No question.
I can't comment on it, but you don't have to be an FBI agent with 26 years of experience to figure that out.
Gonzalez says the two hijackers, Nawaf al-Hazmi and Khalid Al-Midar, were helped by a number of Saudis, including Omar al-Bayoumi. Bayoumi was working for the Saudi government and has said he randomly ran into the two hijackers at a restaurant in Los Angeles and urged them to move to San Diego.
He lived in this apartment complex.
There he helped them find an apartment and open a bank account. The two hijackers even started flight school nearby.
I can't sit on the sidelines when I know the truth.
Gonzalez says he's under FBI orders not to reveal certain classified information about Operation Encore, as is another former agent, Ken Williams, who wrote a memo before 9/11 warning potential terrorists were taking flight lessons in Arizona. Both men are now working for the families.
The evidence is there. I've seen it, but I can't get into the specifics because of the protective order.
The 9/11 families are suing Saudi Arabia for money. The Saudis deny official involvement. And the 9/11 Commission report found no connection. But Operation Encore started 2 years after the Commission's report.
If we took the team's records from Operation Encore,
Right.
What would the public learn?
A lot. A lot.
Would it change our understanding of 9/11?
Sure. Yes.
Successive presidents have kept Operation Encore secret, citing national security. Brett Eagleson says the executive order is a critical first step, but he remains skeptical. 2 decades after the attacks, Eagleson wants his daughter to know the secrets of 9/11.
Your grandpa, he was a hero in the World Trade Center.
And who killed her grandfather. Catherine Herridge, CBS News, Washington.
Latest news. September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks. Latest news. FBI releases declassified documents about investigating the ties between Saudi government and September 11th attacks. And former Attorney General Barr and other top Trump officials invoked state secrets privilege to hide FBI 9/11 report with no state secrets. This is the latest news. CBS News headliner, FBI releases declassified documents about investigating ties between Saudi government and September 11th attacks. The FBI released hundreds of pages of newly classified documents Wednesday in its long effort to explore connections between the Saudi government and the September 11th attacks, revealing the scope of a strenuous but ultimately fruitless investigation whose outcome many question to this day. Release comes nearly 2 months after the FBI released a 16-page document unveiling a memo detailing significant logistic support that 2 of the Saudi hijackers received inside the United States. Agents for years investigated support given to several of the hijackers upon their arrival in the United States, focusing in particular on whether 3 Saudi nationals, including a Saudi embassy official in Washington, had advanced knowledge of the attacks. Ultimately, investigators found insufficient evidence to charge any of the three with illegally supporting the hijackers, according to an FBI memo from May that closed out the probe and was among the more than 700 pages released just Wednesday. The FBI noted in the memo that Al-Qaeda compartmentalized the roles within its major attacks. It did not make the attacks plans known in advance to others for fear of word getting out. Specifically in relation to the 9/11 attacks, the hijackers knew there was a martyrdom operation, but did not know about the nature of the operation until shortly before the attack for operational security reasons, the FBI memo states. Documents were the latest materials to be released under an executive order from President Biden aimed at making public long classified investigative reports related to the attacks. A separate investigative document was released on the 20th anniversary of the attacks in September. Records have long been sought by victims' relatives as they sue in federal court in New York to try and prove that the Saudi government was complicit, something Riyadh officials have vigorously denied. The Saudi embassy in Washington did not respond to a request for comment on Wednesday, but issued a statement in September calling any allegations of complicity malicious, categorically false. U.S. government investigations over the past 2 decades have documented support given by Saudi government officials to several of the hijackers upon their arrival in the United States, but have not produced clear evidence that Saudi government leaders helped plot the attacks. The FBI memo closing out the investigation says the Bureau has not identified additional groups or individuals responsible for the attack other than currently charged. Even so, the documents reveal new details about the years-long efforts by the FBI to hunt for possible involvement by the Saudi government and to scrutinize support given by Saudi nationals in the United States to the first 2 hijackers to arrive in the United States, Nawaf al-Hazmi and Khalid al-Midar. Andrew Maloney, a lead lawyer for the victims' families, said the FBI has now released a substantial amount of very incriminating documents regarding the Saudi government's role in helping Al-Qaeda and these 2 hijackers in particular. Brett Eagleson, whose father Bruce died in the World Trade Center attack, said in a statement that the details in the documents helped bolster the arguments that high-level Saudi officials aided and supported the 9/11 hijackers. Danny Gonzalez, a former FBI agent who worked on the investigation, is now an investigator for the families, told CBS News in September that he's confident 2 of the hijackers had a U.S.-based support network. 19 hijackers cannot commit 3,000 mass murders by themselves, Gonzalez said in his first televised interview about the investigation. Among the episodes scrutinized by the FBI and recounted in the records is a February 2000 encounter at a Southern California halal restaurant between Al-Hazmi and Al-Midar and a Saudi national named Omar al-Bayoumi, who subsequently helped them lease an apartment in San Diego. He had previously drawn FBI scrutiny, but was never charged over his connections with the future hijackers. CBS News had previously reported about a notebook recovered at al-Bayoumi's home by British police. The notebook had a handwritten drawing of a plane and a mathematical equation that may have been used in preparation for the attack, an assessment that appeared in a sworn declaration of a pilot interviewed by investigators. According to the records released Wednesday, the FBI also investigated ties between al-Hazmi and al-Midar and people linked to the Saudi Ministry of Islamic Affairs, which funds mosques and efforts to promote Islam around the world. According to one of the documents, the FBI studied whether al-Qaeda operatives had infiltrated the ministry unbeknownst to the Saudi government, or whether there was a collaboration of al-Qaeda operatives and certain radical elements within the Ministry of Islamic Affairs for mutually beneficial goals. The FBI examined whether Saudis had been given financial support to al-Hazmi and al-Midar had ties to the plotters of the attack. According to the documents, al-Bayoumi was in contact with Muassed al-Jarrah, who served as director of Islamic Affairs at the Saudi embassy in Washington, and who the FBI suspected may have been trying to bring extremists into the United States using his embassy position. In its final summary of the investigation, the FBI described al-Jarrah as a controlling, guiding, and directing influence on all aspects of Sunni extremist activity in Southern California. Maloney, the plaintiff's lawyer, said those allegations are significant. He went on to say, "Here, we now have for the first time the FBI telling the world that al-Jarrah was an extremist that he was bringing in Sunni extremist imams into the United States and then supervising them. But authorities had insufficient evidence that Al-Jarrah al-Bayoumi and a third man, Fahad al-Thumari, who had an accredited diplomat at the Saudi consulate in Los Angeles, and who, investigators said, led an extremist faction at the mosque, had conspired to assist the hijackers. None of the three were charged, and all have since left the country, the FBI said. The Trump administration fought to keep Al-Jarrah's identity private before the Justice Department accidentally released it last year in a court filing. In a September 8, 2021 memo, the FBI corrected a previous assertion it made and said there was no evidence to prove that Al-Jarrah had any personal contact directly with the two hijackers who were the focus of the investigation. The documents also show investigators repeatedly re-interviewed Modar Abdullah, a Yemeni student who befriended Hazman Al-Midar when they settled in San Diego. He was arrested after the attacks at a suspected material witness, an allegation he had denied. After nearly 3 years in custody, he was deported to Yemen in 2004. Abdullah had told investigators that he believed Saudi officials may have been complicit in the September 11 plot by helping the hijackers settle in Southern California, but he could not provide agents with evidence. When questioned why he believed that, Abdullah stated that it is his opinion that he doesn't know anything more than what he provided to the FBI in the past, the documents say. This was dated November 4, 2021. Florida Bulldog headliner under oath, Attorney General Barr and other top Trump officials invoked state secrets privilege to hide FBI 9/11 report with no state secrets. This was dated October 7, 2021, and written by Dan Christensen. Long before last month's release of a 2016 FBI report about Operation Encore, the Bureau's probe into possibly Saudi complicity in 9/11, top Trump administration officials swore under penalty of perjury that information in the report was a state secret whose public release was likely to cause significant harm to the national security. But when the 16-page report was finally made public on September 11th, following a declassification review ordered by President Biden the week before, no state secrets were apparent. A redaction key provided by the FBI to explain some deletions shown that only a few short bits and pieces of the report were kept classified by the Bureau, presumably for genuine national security reasons. The key likewise showed that another unspecified U.S. government agency, perhaps the Central Intelligence Agency, accounted for two other censored portions, totaling about one full page of the report. Nevertheless, twice under oath, former Attorney General William Barr personally invoked the law's state secrets privilege to keep records away from Operation Encore, the FBI investigation, for public view. In 2019, Barr said his assertion was specifically necessary to protect from disclosure certain national security information contained in an October 2012 FBI report about Operation Encore, a report first released of Florida Bulldog in moderately redacted form in 2016 amid Freedom of Information Act litigation. Barr cited the state secret privilege again, more broadly in 2020 of April, to hide the 2016 follow-up Encore report. Plus, numerous other federal records sought by thousands of 9/11 families who are suing to hold Saudi Arabia responsible for the terrorist attacks of September 11th. Given we now know the documents of the 2016 Encore report, Barr's assertion of the privilege is problematic. The Justice Department's own rules governing the use of the state secret privilege prohibit a sweeping invocation of the privilege. In an interview with Florida Bulldog plaintiff's lawyer Andrew J. Maloney III accused the Justice Department of misleading the court. The report is clearly not a secret and should not have been described in court as a state secret. It was an abuse of power by the former Attorney General, said Maloney. He also went on to say the judge should call in and question him to explain how this document was the state secret. He needs to explain himself. However, that seems unlikely. U.S. Magistrate Sarah Newbern, assigned by U.S. District Judge George Daniels, to hear and decide many pretrial matters, allowed to stand Barr's assertion of the state secrets privilege regarding the 2016 Encore report and the numerous other FBI records. And she did so without providing any public explanation. Her decision, of course, raises the question of whether she read the 2016 report, and if so, why she concluded it and deserved state secret protection when the FBI itself, though pushed by President Biden, had largely made it public. While the 2016 Encore report did not contain any substantial official secrets, it does contain significant and previously unknown information about Al-Qaeda operatives, Hazman and Al-Midar, and the Saudis who assisted them and their arrival in Los Angeles in January of 2000, including a diplomat and a suspected spy. Some of that information raises fresh questions about why the United States never brought criminal charges against possible co-conspirators. Al-Midar and Al-Hazmi were part of a 5-suicide squad hijack team that 20 months later crashed American Airlines Flight 77 into the Pentagon. For 5 years, finding out what FBI agents uncovered during the 9-year life of Operation Encore has been at the core of the intense civil litigation in New York. Saudi Arabia has long maintained it has nothing to do with the attacks, a position it reiterated in September, just days before the emotional 20th anniversary of the attacks. The kingdom often has cited in its support the final report of the bipartisan 9/11 Commission, which in 2004 stated Saudi Arabia has long been considered the primary source of Al-Qaeda funding, but we found no evidence that the Saudi government as an institution or senior Saudi officials individually funded the organization. Yet 3 years after the commission shut down, the FBI quietly opened Operation Encore to examine persistent questions about the existence of a U.S.-based support network for the hijackers. Encore's scope has yet to be disclosed, but both the October 12, 2012 and the April 2016 reports made it appear as if its focus was completely on Al-Hazmi and Al-Midar's intriguing connections in Southern California, the specific issue for which the New York court authorized ongoing discovery by plaintiffs. Those connections center on Fahad al-Tameri, a diplomat and imam at the Los Angeles area mosque, where 2 of the hijackers arrived in January 2000 and met, and Omar al-Bayoumi, a part-time student and suspected Saudi agent with a lucrative no-show job with a Saudi contractor to the kingdom. The 2 Encore documents made clear the FBI suspected both men of having winningly helped Al-Hazmi and Al-Midar in their terrorist mission. The third main suspect of Encore was ex-Saudi embassy official Muwasset al-Jarrah, in which the 2012 FBI report says tasked al-Thameri and al-Bayoumi with assisting the hijackers. Numerous other government records about 9/11, including Encore documents, are currently undergoing declassification reviews per Biden's recent executive order. That's the latest news. Now my thoughts. Well, the documents certainly will help to give a crack in the foundation, and this is going to be expected because between the United States, Saudi Arabia, and Israel, all who have their intelligence services active in monitoring members of Al-Qaeda, including those who partook in the September 11th attacks. But the real sensitive information will be remained classified and not made public until many, many years later, unfortunately. This is just the reality of things. Same thing has happened with the JFK assassination. 65 years later, we're still asking the questions of who, what, where, and why. But at least it's something. And with enough pressure coming from the victims' families and lawyers, and most importantly, the public needs to get on this ball. But what doesn't help are the fringe conspiracy theories which are holding back from having any serious discussion in the future. No thanks to the people like Alex Jones, Jason Burmis, Jim Fetzer, Christopher Bolin, and the rest who have made 9/11 a comedy, more like a circus act. However, with the FBI investigation into Saudi embassy officials, as well as Saudi agents in Southern California. Others, including Fahad al-Dumari, Osama Basnan, of course, Omar al-Bayoumi, Muwassid al-Jara, and others. We should force the issue about whether or not there was more than 19 hijackers. What about those who were involved in the second wave of operations? What do I mean? Well, according to Zacchaeus Moussaoui, who, by the way, was not tortured and acted as his own counsel in his own trial in 2006, that there was going to be a second wave of attacks. That those who were arrested and detained on September 13th and 14th, over 60 people, including one dressed as a pilot, who was incidentally a relative of the bin Laden family, tried to get on board the planes at LaGuardia and JFK. What about the additional weapons found on these planes on September 11th and beyond? Knives taped to the back of food trays, what looked like explosive devices hidden underneath seats, the extra hijacking of, say, United Airlines Flight 23. Who were these people? And were they Saudis? Were they even Al-Qaeda? No one knows, because all those people who have been detained by federal authorities, including local and state, have all been deported, including the intelligence rings that were monitoring the operatives who were involved with the September 11th attacks, including the Israeli moving front companies in New York, New Jersey, and Florida, as well as the art student ring who are monitoring the DEA, the FBI, and those who live ironically close to the members of the Hamburg cell and Khalid Al-Midar and Nawaf Hazmi out west. And people like Osama Sam Mustafa, who owned the gas station Sam Start Mart in Texaco in La Mesa, California, who was described in the FBI Operation Encore report, who was sentenced to 20 years for fraud earlier this year. Last year. In which one of the hijackers had worked under him, Nawaf al-Hazmi. While Khalid Al-Midar traveled back to Yemen to visit his wife and newborn baby. Sam Mustafa actually was somebody who hated the United States and didn't make it a secret, and even celebrated the 9/11 attacks. He was given a 20-year sentence for fraud when he was captured in Jordan last year and returned to the United States. What about interviewing people such as him? Or the FBI informant in San Diego, who once gave room and lodging to Khalid Al-Midar and Nawaf al-Hazmi, Abdussadah Sheikh, who was completely ignored by the 9/11 Commission report. In the summer of 2000. His handler, Stephen O'Brien of the FBI San Diego field office, was not told about the actual names or the surnames of Khalid Al-Midar and Nawaf al-Hazmi. Now, was this on purpose? We don't know. Abdussadah Sheikh, however, lied about who he was. And in the FBI reports, he was given the code name Stan. Nothing became more of him. Just disappeared. And of course, the CIA, the NSA intelligence ring abroad in Germany, in Yemen, where they were monitoring the Al-Qaeda safe house in Sana'a for many years prior. The NSA, who I've made this point many times in the last just 2 weeks alone, have been monitoring that house for years prior to September 11th. What is on those cables? What did they listen to on those phone calls? Were they talking about the attacks? This would give them foreknowledge. It would break open the case wide. This is something that we need to pressure the National Security Agency or even the State Department to release, if it ever could be. As long as the truth movement remains fractured, and as long as the media is complicit in covering up and withholding information to the public about what's going on with 9/11, and give us little bits and fruits of the vegetables and the fruits of the matter in regards to the latest news about a drip here and a drip there of declassified documents. We need to have more than just 700 pages in which tens of thousands of pages remained classified in the National Archives. And I think it's high time the public pressures the federal government in releasing a hell of a lot more.